Samantha Pierce had it all, or at least that's what she told herself. At just 32, she was one of the most recognized real estate agents in the state of Georgia. She wore luxury heels that clicked like gunshots across marble floors, drove a silver Range Rover that gleamed in the Atlanta sun, and spoke with the kind of confidence that could sell a broken-down shack as a hidden gem. And then there was Marcus Reed, the carpenter. His hands were calloused, his boots scuffed, and his face wore the calm strength of a man who built more than he boasted. To Samantha, he was everything she wasn't: working class, unpolished, and, in her eyes, invisible. One afternoon, when fate tossed them together at a construction site, Samantha smirked at him and said, "Real money isn't in building houses, sweetheart. It's in selling them. I'll leave the sawdust to you." Marcus just smiled, silent as stone. Months later, when Samantha's dream mansion crumbled from poor design and flashy shortcuts, the only man who could rebuild her shattered empire was the very carpenter she had mocked. And in the ruins, she would learn that strength isn't in selling dreams. It's in building them. Samantha Pierce believed her life proof that hard work and polished ambition could buy not just comfort, but superiority. At 32, she was already a top agent in Atlanta, a woman who had risen above the crowded competition and clawed her way into the elite world of luxury real estate. Her image was flawless. Every morning, Samantha stood in front of her bathroom mirror, framed by Hollywood-style lights, rehearsing her smile until it glowed with just the right degree of warmth and confidence. She wore tailored suits in bold colors: ruby red, cobalt blue, emerald green, because she knew her clients expected spectacle. Her heels were Italian, her nails were French-tipped perfection, and her hair was always straightened to sleek, glossy lines that matched the glass towers she often sold. Money mattered. Presentation mattered. Winning mattered. Which is why when she first saw Marcus Reed on a construction site, she didn't see a man. She saw labor. Marcus was a carpenter, tall, broad-shouldered, with a quiet steadiness that clashed against her world of constant noise and fast deals. His clothes were plain: faded jeans, a gray t-shirt speckled with sawdust, work boots that looked like they'd carried him across 1,000 unfinished floors. His skin was dark and his hands rough, every scar a history lesson written in calluses. Samantha met him when she came to inspect a property under development, a sprawling, half-built house in a wealthy suburb. The potential buyer wanted her opinion before committing. She arrived in her Range Rover, doors thudding shut like a judge's gavel, heels sinking slightly into the dirt of the construction lot. Marcus was bent over a beam, pencil tucked behind his ear, measuring with patient precision. He barely looked up when she arrived, just offered a polite nod before returning to his work. Samantha smirked. How quaint, she thought. Men like him built the world, but women like her sold it. That, to her, was the difference between power and servitude. "You're the carpenter?" she asked, stepping closer. Marcus straightened, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his arm. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus Reed. She let her gaze sweep over the frame of the unfinished house. It's impressive, in a dusty, noisy sort of way, but let's be honest. Real money isn't in building houses, sweetheart. It's in selling them. I'll leave the sawdust to you." Marcus just smiled, silent as stone. That unsettled her more than if he'd snapped back. His quiet confidence was unnerving. She brushed it off with a laugh, tossing her hair. "Well, I'll leave the sawdust to you. I have clients waiting for the finished product." And just like that, she turned her back on him. But fate, as it often does, was not finished with them. Over the next weeks, Samantha threw herself into her work. Deals flowed, commissions piled up, and her name buzzed on the lips of Atlanta's upper class. Yet deep down, she wanted something more than just selling other people's luxury. She wanted a legacy. That was when she decided she needed her own mansion. Not just a house, but a statement. A sprawling, multi-million-dollar palace that would cement her as not just a realtor, but a brand. Something so impressive that clients would step inside and think, if Samantha lives like this, then she must know the best homes money can buy. She hired a high-end architect who was more interested in flashy innovation than structural sense. Glass walls that stretched too far, balconies that seemed to float, imported marble slabs that weighed more than the foundation was designed to bear. It was daring, glamorous, and reckless. Exactly what she wanted. During one of her site visits, she ran into Marcus again. He had been subcontracted for some of the woodwork, though he kept his distance from the architect's grand designs. When Samantha saw him there, she couldn't resist another jab. "Marcus," she said, striding across the dust with her designer sunglasses perched high, "building this for me must be the highlight of your career?" Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. He glanced at the fragile-looking beams the architect insisted would hold just fine, and then back at her. "Just remember," he said slowly, "a house isn't about how pretty it looks on the outside. It's about how strong it stands when the storm comes." Samantha rolled her eyes. "Spare me the poetic wisdom. This house is going to be the crown jewel of Atlanta real estate. And when it's done, you'll probably wish you could afford to walk through the front door." Marcus said nothing more. He returned to his work, measuring with quiet precision, as if her words had no weight against the timber he shaped. What Samantha didn't realize was that Marcus had seen it before. Mansions built like glass castles, designed to impress, but doomed to fail. And he knew, with an ache of inevitability, that this one would not last.
The Shattered Foundation. Samantha's mansion project became the talk of Atlanta's elite circles. She flaunted the blueprints like a golden ticket, showcasing glossy renderings at every networking event she attended. The grand staircase that spiraled like a ribbon, the infinity pool overlooking the city, the marble imported from Italy, every detail screamed opulence. Her colleagues at the brokerage firm whispered in awe and envy. "Pierce is really doing it," they said. "She's building the house of the decade." But Marcus Reed didn't share their enthusiasm. Each time he visited the site to fulfill his carpentry contracts, he saw the shortcuts being taken. Load-bearing beams thinner than they should be, corners cut to meet deadlines. The architect's obsession with glass and open spaces left the frame weaker than Marcus could stomach. He raised concerns quietly to the foreman, but his words were brushed aside. "Don't worry, Marcus. This is high-end architecture. They know what they're doing." Yet, Marcus knew better. Houses, like people, revealed their strength only when tested. One late afternoon, Samantha arrived at the site with a client in tow, a wealthy couple she hoped to impress. She wanted them to see her under-construction palace as a reflection of her brand. Marcus was on a ladder, hammering in place a frame for the upstairs balcony. His shirt clung to his back with sweat, muscles flexing with each measured strike. He noticed Samantha approaching, her heels crunching against gravel, her laughter loud enough to echo across the unfinished walls. She gestured toward Marcus with a manicured hand. "There, see? The magic of construction. Hard-working men with hammers bringing visions to life." The couple chuckled politely, though Marcus heard the dismissive edge in her voice. He felt like a prop in her performance. Climbing down, Marcus greeted the couple politely, then stepped aside. But Samantha wasn't done. "Marcus here probably thinks building is the noblest profession in the world," she said with a smirk. "But the truth is, without agents like me, these homes wouldn't sell for a dime. Real money, real success, it's in selling dreams, not hammering nails." The couple laughed again, more uncomfortably this time. Marcus met her gaze, steady and unflinching. Dreams don't stand long without foundations. His words landed heavier than the hammer in his hand. The couple went quiet for a moment, glancing between the two of them. Samantha brushed it off with a forced laugh and quickly redirected the conversation back to the glass wall that would open the house to endless light. But a flicker of irritation rippled beneath her perfect exterior. That evening, after the clients left, Samantha lingered on site. She found Marcus cleaning up his tools, moving with unhurried precision. Something about his silence irritated her, like he carried a quiet authority she hadn't given him permission to own. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" she asked suddenly. Marcus looked up, brow furrowing. "No, ma'am, I don't think that." "You stand there with your Carpenter wisdom, judging my choices, acting like you know more than me." He set down his hammer, leaning on the workbench. "I don't judge, Miss Pierce. I just see what I see. A house like this," he gestured at the fragile frame of the unfinished mansion. "It's beautiful, yes, but beauty without strength, it won't last." Samantha scoffed, crossing her arms. "That's where you're wrong. Beauty is strength. People buy what dazzles them. I know this business better than anyone." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Maybe, but when the storms come, people don't care how dazzling their house looks. They care if it keeps them safe." His words lingered in the twilight air, unsettling her in ways she couldn't admit. Weeks passed. The mansion neared completion. Samantha threw herself into staging every detail: the imported chandeliers, the grand fireplace, the wine cellar with backlit glass. She already envisioned the launch party, where she would invite the city's richest and most influential, cementing her status as Atlanta's queen of real estate. Marcus, meanwhile, fulfilled his last tasks quietly, then stepped away from the project. He had done what he was paid for. But his gut told him it was only a matter of time before the structure betrayed its weaknesses. And time, as always, proved him right. The collapse didn't happen with a storm or an earthquake or even fire. It happened on a calm summer evening, weeks after Samantha moved in. She was hosting a dinner party, guests sipping champagne on the balcony, when the first cracks appeared. At first it was a faint groan, barely audible beneath the laughter and music. Then a sharp snap of wood under pressure. Then another. Glass trembled in its frame, marble tiles shifted under designer heels, and then with terrifying speed, the balcony gave way. Screams filled the night as guests scrambled to safety. The floor buckled, chandeliers swung violently. A section of the grand staircase crumbled under its own weight. By the time the dust cleared, Samantha's dream mansion was reduced to a broken skeleton of what it had been. Her legacy, her empire, lay in ruins. And in that moment, when her carefully curated world collapsed, only one name came to her mind: Marcus Reed.
The mansion stood in silence, a graveyard of ambition. Police tape stretched across shattered marble steps. Inspectors walked the wreckage with clipboards in hand, and Samantha Pierce's name, once synonymous with glamour, now buzzed across headlines for all the wrong reasons. Millionaire realtor's mansion collapses weeks after completion. Was Samantha Pierce's dream home built too fast, too flashy? From top seller to total disaster, the fall of Atlanta's real estate queen. Samantha sat in the back of her Range Rover outside the ruins, sunglasses shielding eyes swollen from a night of crying. She hadn't slept. Her phone buzzed nonstop with reporters, clients canceling contracts, colleagues distancing themselves. For the first time in her career, she felt powerless. The architect, of course, had vanished into legal silence. The construction company pushed the blame onto subcontractors. Insurance companies stalled. Every hand that once shook hers with admiration now pointed fingers instead. She had money, but money couldn't erase the humiliation or rebuild what was lost. That's when she remembered Marcus's words. A house isn't about how pretty it looks on the outside. It's about how strong it stands when the storm comes. At the time, she laughed him off. But now, with her empire reduced to rubble, his words cut deeper than any headline. Samantha knew where to find him. Marcus Reed wasn't hard to track down. He worked out of a modest workshop on the outskirts of Atlanta, tucked behind an auto repair shop and a laundromat. When she pulled up in her luxury SUV, the contrast couldn't have been sharper. Her polished world versus his humble one. She found him bent over a workbench, sawdust floating in sunbeams that streamed through a dusty window. He was carving a piece of oak, movements steady and unhurried, as if the outside world's chaos had no claim over him. "Marcus," she called, her voice cracking slightly. He looked up, eyes calm but curious. "Miss Pierce, surprised to see you here." She removed her sunglasses, revealing tired, red-rimmed eyes. For once, she didn't bother with makeup, and the absence of her polished armor made her look almost fragile. "My house. It's gone," she said softly. Marcus set down his tools. "I heard." Silence stretched between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Samantha shifted, unaccustomed to being the one asking for help. I need you," she admitted finally. "You were right. About everything. The house wasn't strong. It was a lie. And now everyone knows it." Marcus studied her carefully, then asked, "Why come to me?" "Because you're the only one who can fix it." He leaned back, folding his arms. "Fixing what collapsed is one thing. Fixing why it collapsed, that's another. Are you ready to do it right this time?" Her pride flared, instinctively wanting to snap back, but the memory of glass shattering, of guests screaming, of reporters swarming, it broke through her defenses. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll do whatever it takes." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then let's start from the ground up." The following week, Samantha stood among the wreckage of her once dream mansion as Marcus surveyed the damage. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes missed nothing. The weakened beams, the cracked foundation, the dangerous design flaws hidden beneath expensive finishes. "This house," he said finally, "was built to impress, not to last. We'll need to tear most of it down before we rebuild." Samantha winced. "Tear it down? But that's millions of dollars in materials." He cut her off gently, but firmly. "Materials don't matter if the foundation is wrong. You don't patch a broken bone with cape. You set it right, even if it means starting over." She swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed to argue, to bargain, to find a shortcut. But shortcuts had already destroyed her once. She clenched her fists, nodded, and said, "Do it your way." For the first time, Marcus saw sincerity in her eyes, not just the desperation of a fallen queen, but the flicker of someone willing to learn. Working with Marcus was unlike anything Samantha had ever experienced. In real estate, everything was about speed. Fast deals, fast closings, fast money. Marcus's world was the opposite. He moved with deliberate patience, insisting on quality over speed, integrity over appearances. Day after day, she watched him and his small crew rebuild from the ground up. He taught her about wood grain, about pressure points in beams, about why certain angles supported weight better than others. He explained how moisture could weaken even the strongest materials if not accounted for. At first, Samantha found it tedious, but slowly she began to see the poetry in it. Building wasn't just hammering nails. It was storytelling with timber and stone. It was crafting something that would outlast its maker. One afternoon, as she held a plank steady while Marcus cut, she asked, "How did you learn all this?" He smiled faintly. "My father, he was a carpenter too, said a man's work should be like a tree, roots deep, branches strong, shade for those who come after." Samantha blinked, unexpectedly moved. She thought of her own father, a businessman who taught her ambition but never patience. Maybe that's why she had always chased appearance over substance. But rebuilding wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Samantha faced ridicule from the press, Cold shoulders from former colleagues, whispers at every event. But each evening, covered in dust and sweat from helping Marcus's crew, she felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time, she wasn't selling dreams, she was building them. Still, old habits died hard. One evening, as Marcus reviewed blueprints, Samantha suggested, "What if we added a glass wall here to make it look more impressive?" Marcus looked at her, eyebrow raised. Impressive to who? To guests, clients, everyone who comes here. He shook his head. This house isn't for them. It's for you. Do you want it strong or do you want it flashy? She hesitated. Old Samantha would have chosen flashy without blinking, but now she remembered the sound of shattering glass, the taste of failure. Slowly she said, strong. Marcus's lips curved into the finest smile. Good answer. Weeks turned into months. The mansion rose again, not as a hollow palace of glass and marble, but as a fortress of craftsmanship. Strong beams, balanced weight, a foundation built to endure. And through it all, Samantha changed too. She learned to value quiet over noise, substance over spectacle, respect over arrogance. She still wore her designer heels, but now she wasn't afraid to kick them off and walk barefoot on fresh wood floors she helped sand herself. Marcus noticed the shift. He never said it out loud, but he saw it in her eyes, in her hands no longer afraid of sawdust, in the way she listened instead of laughed. The wealthy realtor and the humble carpenter were building more than a house. They were building trust.
The second mansion rose slower than the first, but stronger. Every beam, every joint, every foundation stone had Marcus's steady hand and Samantha's watchful eye. Where once she would have snapped at delays, now she found herself marveling at patience. She noticed how Marcus never rushed his crew, how he praised good work instead of barking orders. His leadership wasn't loud, it was steady, like the hum of a level line guiding everything straight. Samantha often stayed late after the crew left, watching the frame take shape against the setting sun. For the first time in her adult life, she wasn't thinking about commissions or clients. She was thinking about permanence. And, increasingly, about Marcus. One evening, as they worked alone to install a support beam, Samantha asked, "Why didn't you walk away from me that first day, when I mocked you?" Marcus paused, adjusting the beam in place. "Because people say things they don't always mean, especially when they're trying to prove something." She frowned. "You think I was just insecure?" He gave a small shrug. "I think you believed success meant being louder than everyone else. But I don't take things personal. I just keep working." Samantha held the beam steady, chewing on his words. No one had ever stripped her arrogance down so gently without venom. It unsettled her more than criticism ever had. Despite her newfound humility, the world outside hadn't forgiven her yet. At a charity gala, months into the rebuild, Samantha returned to her old circle. She wore a stunning black gown, her hair swept elegantly, her smile perfected once again. But whispers followed her across the ballroom. "That's the one whose mansion collapsed. She's lucky no one sued. Some expert, huh?" Samantha tried to laugh it off, but the sting was sharper than she expected. An old colleague, Veronica Hayes, sidled up with a sly grin. "Sam, darling, we all thought you'd disappear after, well, you know. But here you are. Tell me, have you found another architect? Or are you building some little cabin with that Carpenter of yours?" The mockery burned. For a split second, Samantha almost snapped back with her old arrogance.
But then she thought of Marcus, steady as stone, reminding her, strong, not flashy. She lifted her chin. Actually, yes, I'm rebuilding, and this time it'll stand the test of time. Veronica laughed, dismissive, but Samantha noticed something. Her own voice hadn't wavered. For the first time, she didn't care about winning approval in the room. The next day on site, Marcus noticed her quiet mood. "Rough night?" he asked, sanding a plank. She hesitated, then sighed. "People still mock me. No matter what I do, they only see the collapse." Marcus looked up, his eyes steady. "That's because they're watching the surface. But you," he tapped the plank, "you know what's beneath. Strength takes time to show. Let the house stand. Let your work speak. People will see eventually." His calm certainty wrapped around her like a shield. For the first time, she believed it. As the mansion neared completion, their bond grew undeniable. Samantha found excuses to linger after the crew left, handing Marcus tools, asking questions, laughing at his quiet humor. One late evening, rain poured outside while they worked inside, the half-finished fireplace crackling with its first test burn. Samantha leaned against the mantel, watching Marcus adjust the flames. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think men like you were invisible, just background noise in my world." Marcus didn't look offended. He just nodded. "And now?" She studied him, the strength in his shoulders, the patience in his hands, the kindness in his eyes. "I wonder if you're the only one I've really seen." The firelight flickered between them. For a moment, silence stretched, heavy with unspoken truths. Marcus finally smiled faintly. "Careful, Miss Pierce. You're starting to sound like a poet." She laughed, the sound softer than usual, more real. But their bond faced its test. When the mansion was weeks from completion, Samantha's old brokerage firm offered her a way back into the spotlight. They wanted her to host a massive relaunch party in the new mansion. Glamour, champagne, cameras, the works. It was everything old Samantha had ever craved. A chance to reclaim her crown, silence her critics, prove she was still the queen of Atlanta real estate. But when she told Marcus about it, his face was unreadable. "So they want you to use the house like a stage," he said flatly. "It's business," Samantha argued, though her voice lacked conviction. "This could restore my reputation." He leaned on a beam, wiping his hands. "Or it could drag you back to the same world that tore you down." She bristled. "So what? I should just give up my career? Live quietly, building wooden nails?" His eyes met hers, steady as always. "No, but maybe you don't need to prove yourself to people who never saw you clearly in the first place." His words hit deeper than she wanted to admit. For days, she wrestled with the decision, glamour or integrity, old world or new. The night before she had to give the firm her answer, Samantha wandered the unfinished mansion alone. The walls echoed with silence, the beams strong and steady. She ran her hand along the grain of the wood Marcus had cut, feeling its solid permanence. For the first time, she realized this house wasn't just a structure. It was a mirror. Her old self had collapsed. This new one was rising, slowly but stronger. And at the heart of it was Marcus.
The mansion stood tall against the horizon, reborn. No longer a fragile glass palace, it was now a fortress of balance and strength. Thick beams hidden beneath polished walls.
Foundations that ran deep, unshakable. Windows framed with care, not vanity. The beauty of the house was undeniable, but this time it was beauty born from integrity. Samantha walked the hall slowly, her hand brushing the smooth wood, the solid stone. Months of dust and sweat had finally paid off. But more than the house, she felt something shift inside herself. She was no longer chasing approval. She was standing in something real. Marcus stood outside on the porch, arms crossed, looking at his work with quiet pride. When Samantha joined him, she followed his gaze. "It's everything I wanted," she said softly. "No," Marcus corrected gently. "It's everything you needed." Their eyes met, and for once, Samantha didn't look away. The brokerage firm still expected her answer about the relaunch party. The offer glittered. Champagne, cameras, headlines promising to restore her to the throne. For days, she considered it, pacing the new mansion's halls. Finally, she called the firm. "I appreciate the offer," she said firmly, "but this house isn't a stage. It's a home. If clients want to work with me, they'll see the kind of life I stand for now. No flashing lights required." The silence on the other end was telling. They weren't pleased, but for the first time in her career, Samantha didn't care. When she hung up, she exhaled deeply, as if a weight had lifted from her chest. Instead of a media circus, Samantha chose something different. She invited only a handful of close friends, neighbors, and even the crew who built the house, including Marcus's team. No champagne towers, no flashing cameras, just food, laughter, and people who had been part of the journey. The night was warm, lanterns glowing across the porch. Marcus stood quietly at the edge, watching Samantha move among her guests. But this time, she wasn't performing. Her laughter wasn't sharp, but genuine. Her eyes weren't scanning the room for approval. They lingered on people, listening, connecting. When she caught Marcus watching, she walked over with 2 glasses of sweet tea, handing him one. "You know, this feels better than any gala I've ever thrown." He took the glass, nodding. "That's because it's real." She smiled, the words sinking deep. Later that night, after the guests left, Samantha and Marcus stood in the quiet house together. The moonlight streamed through the windows, silver on the polished floors. "Marcus," she began, her voice low, "when this started, I thought you were just a carpenter, just someone who built things for people like me to sell. But now I realize you don't just build houses. You build foundations for homes, for people, maybe even for hearts." Marcus studied her, then gave a small, warm smile. "And you don't just sell dreams anymore, Samantha. You've learned how to live one." The air between them was thick with unspoken truths. She took a step closer. "I couldn't have done this without you." "You did more than you think," he replied. "You changed." "No." She shook her head. "No, you changed me." For the first time, Samantha Pierce, queen of Atlanta real estate, woman of marble floors and sharp heels, let her guard down completely. She reached for his hand, rough and calloused, so different from hers, yet it fit, as though it belonged there all along. Marcus didn't pull away. In the months that followed, the mansion stood as a living testament to strength reborn. Clients did return, slowly, cautiously at first, then with renewed respect. They saw not just the grandeur of the house, but the resilience of the woman who lived there. Her reputation rebuilt itself, not through flashy headlines, but through quiet strength. Her motto changed: "Don't just buy a dream, build one." And at her side, sometimes silent, sometimes offering a steady word, was Marcus Reed, the carpenter who taught her that beauty without strength collapses, but strength with beauty lasts forever. Epilogue. Years later, Samantha often stood on her porch at sunset, watching the light spill over the house that had once been her ruin and was now her redemption. Beside her, Marcus sometimes rested his hand over hers, both of them quiet, content. And when people asked her how she'd survived her greatest failure, she always answered the same way.